so that we can make sure that we can put this onto. One second, this is my volume off. We can put this onto YouTube. So without further ado, Rabbi, over to you.
Okay, Rabbi Jacobson, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here, I have to say. We had a lovely minyan this morning, and I can see a very convivial atmosphere over breakfast. I walked into the door and saw Dr. Shaw. Then I noticed at the front Reverend Levin, and then I was sitting behind Rabbi Shisler, so certainly feel amongst friends. Rabbi Jacobson took a mega risk inviting me this morning. I did speak once in this shul, and I was never invited back. Just in case anybody remembers, I can't imagine anyone will remember, but the rabbis went on a trip to Ukraine. WJR. Richard Verber, who's now of United Synagogue fame, organised it, and we came and we spoke about that. I've got a lovely connection with Rabbi Stephen and the rest of the community. A number of the members of Edgeware community volunteer on a rota to go to one of our Norwood homes. I'm the rabbi. One of the things I do is a rabbi for Norwood, and one of our Norwood homes just along Howell Lane, and it's a rota which has been going beautifully. Not something I instituted, actually. I just took it over. But it's actually a former colleague of mine who comes. I don't know about comes to the shul. Dov Richmond. Family. That's right. That's had a go. And I mean, he sort of started it, and Rabbi Lister also extremely helpful. So, from a Norwood's point of view, we are extremely, indebted sounds the wrong word, but grateful, very grateful to the members of Edgeware Shul. So, I didn't have much hesitation in accepting the opportunity to say a few words. And just to say that if anyone wants to continue more volunteering, there's going to be a carnival which is going to take place in Edgeware, and if anyone wants to volunteer for that, I've got some leaflets there. That's what I'll say about Norwood. I'm going to present a short idea, such a short idea that I'm going to put a little bit of history in the middle of it. Rabbi earlier spoke about Pesach, and that's going to pick up on the theme of that, because Pesach, Peh is a mouth, Sach is a lot we converse about. Pesach, there's an awful lot to talk about, and we have to find our own steer, in a way, spiritually, coming out of Egypt. There's a midrash that suggests that we should talk about the two questions. Sorry, let's start with 2 questions. A midrash suggests that we should tell our children about the Yetziat Mitzrayim from the Haggadah, well known from Rosh Chodesh Nisan. It's from the Haggadah. Number one, why is that? And number two, why is that view rejected and said in favour of the fact that it has to be said on connecting the going out of Egypt, and connecting it only when matzah and marah, as we heard before, and Pesach are right in front of us. And the part of the Haggadah is that the person doesn't know how to ask. You tell him, and you say, no, we're going to mention all these things, but I've always there because of these things. When these things are in front of us, we have these signs and these symbols. We are going to talk about the going out of Egypt. So Haggadah says, well, I might have thought maybe mention it before then, maybe even from Chodesh. No, that's what we're going to do when the Paschal sacrifice is mentioned there. So why was there a suggestion, though, to separate these two ideas? Why was there a suggestion to separate the idea of mentioning it already from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and what to be? Oh, Rabbi, Mr. Garber, nice to see you. That was going to be on Pesach. Why separate? What was the idea of separating the two things? Well, we know there's a famous idea that 30 days before the festival, you talk about the festival. 30 days, and that's specifically reference to Pesach, because of Pesach there's a lot to talk about, a lot of halakha. So where did that idea come from? Anybody know and can give the answer straight away and cut the talk really short? Where it came from? Where it came from, the idea of Pesach Sheni, the idea that they could offer up the Paschal sacrifice a month later, whoever was spiritually impure, whoever was outside of Jerusalem, perhaps, whoever couldn't make it, I don't know, for whatever reason they couldn't be there, so they would offer before. So because there was like a month given of preparation, so it shows that we need a month's preparation for the festival. Well, where does Rosh Chodesh come in then? Rosh Chodesh is only 2 weeks. Well, there's another opinion that says that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says that really that the Pesach Sheni, that the preparation was given from Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That's where that came from, and that's why there was only 2 weeks lead time. That was together. So we've got this idea, and that's a simple idea, but we can offer a deeper idea. And now comes a little bit of history. I'm going to give a little explanation from commentator, a very important Lithuanian commentator or rabbinic figure called the Netziv. Netziv. I'll say a little bit about him. The Netziv. Netziv is an acronym for Naphtali. It's Rabbi Naphtali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin. Netziv. Some people I think know that, right? It was 1816 to 1803. He was a rabbi, obviously, and a Rosh Yeshiva. Not just any Rosh Yeshiva, but it was Rosh Yeshiva, the Volozhin Yeshiva, for about 30, and he was associated with that yeshiva for I don't know, about 38 years. The Russians wanted to introduce secular education into the yeshiva, and he was very much against that. What isn't known is he would allow it outside the yeshiva. He would allow it outside the yeshiva, and he would allow it within a certain framework, but that wasn't good enough for what the Russian authorities wanted. So in the end, he decided he preferred to close the yeshiva. That obviously depressed him greatly. One of the reasons I mentioned him was because in his writings, you can see the great yearning and love to go to Israel. We said all prayers for Israel is constantly in our minds with the hostages, and they should all be returned home. But that was one of his great one of his great desires. To my knowledge, he never went to Israel. But there is a kibbutz named after him near Bet Shan, if those who may have been there. Ein HaNetziv. That's named after the Netziv. Ein HaNetziv. That was named after him because he was very much involved with the Chovevei Tzion movement. Those people that were awakened interest in going back to Israel, and all part of the divine plan. And I mean, I was thinking that his ideas are very similar to Rav Kook, but anyway, who we might be a bit more familiar with. Even if the people who were going back to that land were not necessarily religious, he saw that as virtuous as well. So it's a very similar idea. Okay, so that's the end of the history. He says, so there's a deeper reason why we might want to connect. We might want to suggest that so Rosh Chodesh Nisan and Pesach might will go together, the 1st and the 15th. They might be. We might put them together. A number of times in the Torah, the reference is used that the Nisan is Chodesh Ha'aviv. Aviv, festival, the springtime month. Aviv, Av Yud Bet. Av Nisan is Av. It's the father of Yud Bet of the 12 months. A little idea. That is the first of the 12 months, but it's repeated many times, not just from HaChodesh Zeh Yalachem Rosh Chodashim. It's the first month, and it's Chodesh Aviv. It's mentioned in Bo, it's mentioned in Mishpatim, mentioned in Kitisa, it's mentioned in Ra'ei. All the time, it's mentioned that it is the time of Aviv. So, what's the significance of this time of Aviv? Well, the Netziv wants to explain that when it refers to Aviv, it's talking about the season, and it's talking about that the Almighty fixed Pesach in the season, as we know, in the season of Aviv, which we know is the season of springtime. As we know, the calendar is determined that way. It's always going to be either early or late. That's what Jewish people talk about. Oh, it's early this year, it's late this year. That's always going to be in this kind of month. So the time of month, Netziv goes further and says that it's suitable for redemption. That's why once Pesach came, that whole time of month is suitable for redemption. In fact, Rabbi Dessler, who's Stanley Gated, has a similar kind of idea, I think, on the festivals. They said that's suitable is mesugal. It's fixed. That's kind of almost how God planned the world that way. That was how it was fixed. That's the time of year for redemption. Just like Adar. Well, because the Purim is a time of year for gladness, and sadly, Av, time of year for sadness. Hopefully, time of redemption, of course. But these kind of things. On Tishri, the time of year for judgment. But the Torah identifies Pesach as a chag festival. Now that's interesting, because who determines the chagim? Who determines what date the chagim? This is a question, by the way. Who determines the date of when the chagim are? You want to suggest? Exactly. Absolutely. It was the first mitzvah we came after. He's the first, the Jewish calendar sort of sets the tone for everything else. And also, when we do it now, as a throwback to the time of the temple and before, when they looked up and they determined the new moon by observation. We do, of course, by calendar since about, was it 359? Hello, a second. I think. So by calculation, but it was observed by observation. So if they came one day, that was set as Rosh Chodesh. If they didn't come that day, the next day would have been Rosh Chodesh. So we determine when the Chagim will be. So if you like, the spiritual message or the metaphysical message or the deeper message that the Tiv wants to bring is that when it comes to our spiritual life, it's us we should imagine it as the determinant. It's up to us to do our bit. They call it hishtadlut. It's up to us to do our bit, not to say everything is determined and we're not fatalists, and to say that God is going to deal with everything. We've got to play our part, and that's why Pesach is referred to as the Chag, and that's why it's got to be together with the 15th. That's what the Nativ wants to say, that Pesach has to be together with the 15th of Nisan. But I was there when we have these symbols of Pesach, Matzah, and Morah together with us. So that's the idea I wanted to present, and it's been a very lovely experience. It's easier to give a talk than to listen to a talk. So thank you all for listening. Somebody once said to me that it's easier to give a shir than to get people to come. Not in Edgware, I'm sure. Because you're good people in Edgware. Is that not? All might turn up for sure. That's really good. Got anything?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that and for joining us. I will say goodbye to those on Zoom, and then we'll finish off the proceedings here. Right.